So let's look at this. The soul, what the soul does, the soul, and I went over it last week. What the soul does, the soul collects. First, the soul, when the soul is manifested, because the soul is manifested as well. The soul is manifested from spirit, right? You have spirit, which is a divine spark of God or the absolute. It manifests as soul, and then soul manifests as a body for itself that we call the auric unit or the auric structure. Okay? Auric unit or auric structure. You'll see this in metaphysical books. This auric structure is indestructible. It lasts for eons, from one life to the next. But what the soul does, the soul, when it manifests this auric structure, this becomes the body of the soul. Okay? Now, what it does, it manifests this auric structure in a particular way. This is manifested with a great pattern of power, to pull on power, to manifest itself, to link itself to the universe, in other words. The way the soul built this auric structure is in a way, is comically perfect, in other words. And it's done that way in order to link itself to the universe, in order to pull on the power of the galaxy and galaxies, in order to carry out its mission, which may take billions of years, okay? And to allow it to move from point A to point Z, wherever that point Z is. So that's why it's virtually indestructible. And within it, it relies on all life around it, on all the manifested life around it, of the universe. I mean, the so-called gods, because the way it does this, it pulls on the many modifications of the Shakti power, which this is redundant because Shakti means power. But because we are limited, I have to say power again. So you'll know that it's power. It's absolute power, really. Shakti power. So it pulls on this power, and it pulls on this power from the galaxy, right? The suns within the galaxy, planets within the galaxy. It pulls on this power from everywhere, right? So it is the way it's developed. I mean, the way this substance come about. This substance come about as though it's like a miniature sun. In other words, because that's what the sun does. And that's what the central sun of the galaxy does. It's like a miniature sun, and in metaphysical terms, it's a compaction point of Shakti or power. That's what this auric body is. And it's geometrically designed in order to pull on the powers of the universe and the galaxy and never die. You know, the same way the sun, although physical man say the sun dies, no, it doesn't. It just transforms into a different realm of existence and continue to move on. So it has this everlasting fission power, you know, and it has a purpose for its existence, you know, because of course no energy, you know, energy only modifies. It doesn't
create or destroy.
Huh?
Not created or destroyed.
It's not created or destroyed because it's always there. So that's what this auric body does. So now let's look at the intricate parts of this auric body when we look at it. This auric body has a bindu, right? And the bindu in Hindu terms is a spiritual germ or a point of consciousness or a compaction point of tremendous power. This bindu extends itself throughout the body, right? I mean, throughout the auric structure. And within this auric structure, it has points of energy types. It has a neutral energy, it has a positive energy, and it has a negative energy. Okay? So we have to look at that. Now, in the Hindu terminology, they would call the neutral energy Sushumna. A Sushumna nadi, and nadi only means a flow of energy. Okay? The positive energy will be called a Pingala. All right? And a negative energy will be called Ida. And now positive negative doesn't mean wrong and good. No, it just means a power source. So now all of this energy is perfectly balanced within the auric structure in the beginning. It's perfectly balanced. There's nothing out of place. And it's perfectly balanced in order to operate on a soul level. Now, but the soul must involve itself. It must bring about involution for itself. So what the soul does, in bringing about the involution for itself, what the soul have to do, the soul have to manipulate the energy of the auric body by pulling on the energies of itself and outside of itself. Okay? And now the soul doesn't look at energy as outside of itself because the soul is part of the universe, it's part of the galaxy. But just so that we can understand this, we say that. Now, another thing the bindu is a point of what's another word for it so that you can understand. It's a doorway to the all knowledge space, to the all in all as well, in other words. So let's look at this. While this is perfectly balanced, the the Pingala and Ida Nadi formulates and moves in accordance to Sushumna. Just for perspective so that you can understand, let's say that the Sushumna is one straight line through the auric body, right? At this time, while it's perfectly in sync in order to respond to the soul, okay? Right, at this soul level. Now, what does the soul does? Because the soul wants to create consciousness. It wants to limit its perspective because at this point, the soul is aware of the whole galaxy. It's aware of the galaxy. It was just, let's say it was just manifested from the spirit. So it is aware of this divine spark of God, fully aware of it, and is fully aware of its mission, its directives given to it from the spirit. Not saying that it won't be aware of it later. It will be aware of it later, but the soul is going to split its consciousness up or create a consciousness and then split the consciousness up. So what the soul does in order to limit its perspective and begin to start its journey, it pulls on the great Shakti power of the galaxy, of the universe, and it pushes it down through Sushumna. Now, in the core of Sushumna is called the Brahmanati. And in this Brahmanati, it is said that it's the great sacred place of the gods, or the God energy. And it's guarded, this Brahmanati is really guarded. It's guarded by three other sources of energy. So you just can't tap into it. It's designed that you have to be karmically prepared and perfect in order to tap into the Brahmanati. So the seeds, in other words, the seeds of consciousness or the seeds of total awareness is within the Brahmanati. Now, within the Brahmanati is also the entry, the doorways or the keys to open the different levels of Bindu. Now, why do I say different levels of Bindu? The different levels of Bindu is the chakras within the Brahmanati. The major chakras. So what the soul does? The soul pushes this down through the Shakti. And when it pulls on this Shakti, it turns the Shakti into a concentrated wave. Is that how you spell wave? Of consciousness.
No I.
Huh?
No I.
Wave of consciousness. But it's a concentrated wave of consciousness, and it brings it down through Sushumna within the Brahmanati, and it sucks up information and karmic position of each chakra and brings it here and then it exits the base, which is the Muladhara chakra, the base of the spine. And when it exits, it forms a door. I mean, it forms a lock, which doesn't allow the energy that just exit to enter. This lock, or this knot, is called Kundalini. Okay? And in the Hindu and the Buddhist, they call it the 3.5 knot. And what it does, it forms a knot, or it forms this boulder, or whatever you want to call it, and it blocks the doorway to Sushumna. And when it blocks the doorway to Sushumna, basic consciousness is formed. With this basic consciousness that's formed, the physical, the gross physical state of mind begins to be realized. And at that point, you, they say the whole, which is the awareness of the soul, right, becomes not whole. And all of a sudden, you become aware of time. You become aware of placement. You understand what I'm saying?
You become limited by the various dimensions.
Yeah. So before then, you are aware of the universe. You're aware of the absolute. You're aware of this endless potential. But when this manipulation of energy is put in place, where you block this, where the consciousness that the soul have formed come and form this 3.5 knot and blocks the door to Sushumna or the Brahmanati, you all of a sudden you're cut off from this mass and great awareness, and now you're limited. Now you function in cycles. You don't function in this great awareness. You function in placement, where so now movement takes on shape. When before you are everywhere at once, and there's no reason for movement. There's no reason for movement because you're connected to the whole, to the consciousness. So you don't have to move. You can be still and know what?
You are God.
God. But when when this happened, it cuts you off. Now you're moving from one place to the next like restless animals because you're not aware. You're not aware. So it limits you. So at that point, other actions need to happen in order to begin the process of evolution. This was the process of involution. So now you have to start the process of evolution in the sacred the tantric teachings, the sacred teachings of mantra, satra, and tantra, they talk about uh, it's called sasa. Yeah, yeah. That's it.
Samsara,
Samsara. Yeah. Samsara.
the cycle of rebirth.
Yeah, the cycle of rebirth. That's what happens at that time. That's what this particular chakra, right? This particular chakra, the base chakra, creates the cycle of rebirth. You begin to work in cycles. And the consciousness is limited.
CYCLE.
CYC, right? Where?
Cycle, CYCLE.
So you begin to stay and cycle on these different realms. It's not like before that you lived in all the realms, right? You are living in all the realms, but you're just totally unaware. So what happens now, because you're living in this limited consciousness, you move from a gross mental state to a mental gross state, back to a gross mental state, back to a mental gross state. You understand? And that's your cycle of rebirth. So in other words, you live on the physical plane, right? But the physical plane is a gross mental state of existence. Then you go to the mental planes, which is the mental plane is a mental gross state of existence. And this is called the astral planes, right? Which man want to call it heaven or hell or whatever. And then, then you die from there and you come back to this physical plane, and it keeps going on and on and on until you master the gross mental state and the mental growth state. And that's what it's all about. Now, each one of these levels, this is the base of the spine, this is the sex, each one of these are different states of consciousness. This is the solar plexus or the navel, right? This is the heart. This is the throat. And this is the Christ center, I like calling it. Or Arjuna, or the third eye. Okay? So, each one of these are different states of existence. Now, the heart, from the heart up, is the higher realms of existence. And the energy level on here is far, 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 far different from the energy levels down here. Okay, I mean tremendously different. I mean it's eons of difference, right? The energy level from the heart chakra up, right? From here down is a base gross level of energy and a base gross level of existence on the physical and astral planes of existence. The energy on the higher planes is more etheric energy and etheric realms, and the energy it works in conjunction with perfectly in conjunction with the with the divine law. And if you exist here, you have to be aware of the law of karma, and you have to carry your actions according to the law of karma, or you cannot exist on those realms. You know, you'll be pushed down to the lower realms. So it works totally different, totally different. Our whole existence, our whole uh, uh, goal is to learn the divine laws of karma and work strictly according to the divine laws of karma that does what? That brings about good actions. Okay? That's what I mean by that. In other words, the people who exist on these realms, they make sure that they stay within the line. They have learned enough and know enough, they have advanced enough that every action they make is accounted for. They account for every action they make. You know, they don't allow themselves to just dilly here and dilly there and create a bunch of confusion. They don't allow themselves to do that. All right? So now that you're in the basic, now that the consciousness have been formed, like I said, the consciousness bring about, you become aware of time, which is cycles. You become aware of positioning and placement. And everything is narrowed down. So now you have to make that journey. So what does the soul goes through another series of things where it begins to manipulate sound and light in order to mold and shape the consciousness. And that's where the four states of sound come about that we talked about last week, where if you read any of the ancient teachings, you will hear about the celestial songs of Kundalini, of the Kundalini goddess. And the Kundalini goddess sings this song which releases these four sounds, and these four sounds, it further shapes the basic consciousness and create a greater division of conscious, subconscious, superconscious, and then it moves on and it creates the subtle bodies of man, and then it moves on and it creates the gross body of man. And it talks about four states. This is the first state of the sound, which bring about. This is the second state. It happens at the solar plexus. It brings about movement. This, and then the third, where it brings about the subtle movement. It brings meaning to the subtle movement, because the initial movement happens here, and then the subtle movement, which builds the background. We always talk about the background. It builds the background in which man would work, and which consciousness will work on, right? What is that background? Anybody remember? Nobody remember, huh? Then it moves, it creates the fourth sound, which allows this cycle to happen. The background is the whole subtle framework of man, which is his conscious mind, his subconscious mind, right? And his superconscious mind. And then all his bodies, right? His astral body, his pranic bodies. His pranic formation, that's what I like to call it. Because everything is prana. And then his etheric and astral. Okay, then comes the physical, and then when the energy reach the fourth level, right? Which is that fourth aspect. Then you have the physical body when it reached that throat level. Because, and why is that? Anybody know? I'm just looking at everything I taught you so far.
Why is what?
Why, why it happens at the third, why the physical body is formed at the fourth level, is at that fourth level, which is the throat chakra. It's a sound, yeah. It moves mental energies to audible gross energies. That's one reason. What's another reason? Nobody can think about it. What about the energy level at this level? Anybody remember which prana at this level? You don't remember?
No, I don't
You
remember.
Udana. What's the nature of Udana energy? It's a prana. Udana is one of the 5 major pranas. But what is the nature of Udana? What does Udana do?
It's the one that goes down and comes back up.
Nope. What does it do?
Oh, in the extremities, it expresses consciousness.
So, what does Udana do? Udana brings energy or life to what? Your legs, right?
Your hands,
Your feet, your arms, your hands, and your what?
the head.
Your head. So it kind of makes sense, right? So it gives expression to the physical body. And upon giving you the ability to move on the physical plane, it also helps you to translate your mental thoughts into audible sound. That's what Udana energy does. So it makes sense that this becomes that fourth aspect because it creates that physical body. Because it takes the signal from the command center, which is the Christ center, and it sends that signal out to your extremities, giving it the power to move around this physical realm of existence. See? So, and these ancient people, when they put all this together, they really understood what they were talking about. See? And that's what this energy does. So it makes sense that the fourth aspect of sound creates the physical body and allows you to live on this physical plane for a cycle. For a cycle. Okay? And of course, because of our karmic position, we have limited that cycle to a few decades. If we were in a better karmic position, that cycle would probably be, a few hundred years. But over time, we have limited ourselves. Okay, any questions? I know I'm moving kind of quick on this. I'm leaving a lot of holes. But
So as Shakti is pushed down Sushumna, as it passes through each chakra, it takes on a different quality or aspect. Does its name change as well as it passes through each, or?
Yeah, it always does that.
Okay.
So, but what it does, because that's Shakti. This is Shakti.
The Udana, the prana.
Udana prana is an aspect of Shakti. Okay, all of the energies that I was talking to you about, I call it the signatures of Kundalini, but all of it, even Kundalini, is what?
An aspect of Shakti.
It's an aspect of Shakti. So all of this is an aspect. Remember, Shakti is absolute power, because Shakti comes directly from where?
Absolute.
The absolute, from Shiva. Okay? So it comes out of the the endless potential of God, all right, which is Shiva, which is the absolute. So then as it moves out in order to manifest the universe, it takes on all these different modifications in order to manifest the universe. But it's all Shakti. Everything is Shakti. So yes, as a Shakti moves from the crown chakra down to the Christ chakra, it's modified. And as it goes down, it becomes grosser and grosser and grosser and grosser until it can reach that state where it turns into that 3.5 subtle gross state of existence in order to block and modify energies, all the energies that it collected from above here into something that can create this right here. Because this right here then can move through this. It can move through the cycles. Okay? So that's the difference. All right? Now, of course, when we read the ancient teachings of Kundalini, of Tantra and nature finer forces or whatever, you'll see that the Adamic man, the Brahmic man, he or she did not exist on these realms. They did not exist on these gross realms. They existed on these realms above here. The Bodhisattva that we talk about, the great masters that have came to this earth, Jesus, Elijah, Laose, Sri Krishna, Buddha, I Ching, Ramakrishna, all of these great masters, they live far above this right here. They existed above even the Christ chakra. Okay? So all of this right here, each one of these is an existence. But here, mankind mostly live down here. Very few men live above on the etheric realms. Yeah.
Wait.
You're saying that the level of the Christ consciousness, that's where you would experience the wholeness, have full knowledge of being one with God.
Yeah, to a certain extent. What happened on this earth, when you reach the Christ level, you're living on a cosmic level. You're living on a cosmic level of this planet. All right? You still have to go to a cosmic level of other planets and other solar systems and whatever. But now you got to understand that the earth, the consciousness of the earth, lives on a cosmic level of the solar system and galaxy. Okay? But the earth have created this network or matrix of consciousness that we can live on a cosmic level of the earth, if you can understand that. All right? And then the sun have created a cosmic level of consciousness that the planets of the solar system can live on that matrix of consciousness. And the galaxy have created a matrix that the planets, the suns and the planets can live on. You understand? So it keeps expanding in order to allow us to grow and grow safely and without too many hiccups. In other words, so let's say let's say we raise our consciousness all the way up and we ascend the way Jesus did, the way Jesus came, because Jesus already ascended. He just came back in order to ascend the same way Krishna, the Lord Krishna, came back in order to ascend and to teach us, just to teach us how this whole thing worked, right? Let's say at that point, you're given a chance, you're given an opportunity to stay here and help mankind and become a part of the spiritual hierarchy of the earth, or you can go off and continue your development in order to gain a greater level of existence in order to help the galaxy or the universe, right? So you'll go to you'll go to another planet and you'll have to go through a process of development again. Not that you'll start from here again, because this will be non-existence to you. Because at that point you have total control. You are an avatar. You are a great bodhisattva. But at that point you have to go through, develop that power, that Kundalini, to even another level of existence in order to begin to operate, on a whole nother spectrum, a whole nother sets of dimensions, not this gross physical level, but a more etheric level where you can manipulate energy better, where energy responds to you better. Which man is beginning to realize the subtler energy is, the delicate the energy is, the more power you can get from that energy. He's beginning to realize that. So, but the great yogis understood that thousands of years ago. That it's the subtle energy that moves things. Okay? So, any other questions?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yeah.
So, when you mentioned how the earth and the sun create these different levels, the matrix in which we are able to exist upon, would that go according to this same pattern here, this pattern of involution? Does it follow that same pattern?
Of course,
like
of
the
course.
Earth
It came through the matrix of this earth. In other words, which I didn't really go into, when the soul pulls on the energy, right? The energy that the soul pulls on is from the logos of this earth. Now, of course, the logos of this earth pulls on the energy of the solar system and the galaxy. But the logos of the earth fashion this energy, this Shakti energy. And then the soul, being a resident of this particular planet, pulls on the energy of the logos of this earth. And it shapes that Shakti power into a wave of consciousness that serves its auric structure in order to calibrate its auric structure to this earth. Okay? And then from that point, we live and pull on the Mother Earth. The earth. Now, if we had came to this earth in a perfect karmic pattern, all man would have consciously went to the Mother Earth and came through the logos of the earth of the Mother Earth. In other words, the Bible, the Vedas, the Torah, all these great holy books said what? Man was what? Adam was what? Formed from what? From the earth. In other words, what they were saying, that Adam came through the logos of the earth. Okay? Now, of course, we had multiple Adams, right? But the very first Adam that came through the Mother Earth had access to this tremendous magnetic power and did not have to have this gross physical body that we exist in. He had an etheric body that can teleportate anywhere on the earth, that can pull on the energy of the earth, that can do whatever he or she needed to do with the magnetic power of the earth. Because it was connected to the logos of the earth. And it, they can take flight. They could have they could have left the earth, a part of their consciousness, and traveled throughout the solar system and the galaxy and came, but always connected back to the earth. Because why? Because the karmic pattern was fit enough and had came through the logos of the earth. And there was no need for unconscious reincarnation, an unconscious cycle of of rebirth. When it was time for them to cycle out, they built another body and absorbed that energy back into themselves and moved into the other body, and that's the way it should be done. Now, it's not done like that because of the negative karmic patterns that we built for ourselves here on this earth.
That leads me to the next question.
Mm-hmm.
So, would that be what we consider the so-called Garden of Eden, that level of consciousness that Adam had originally, and then would that correspond to what we talked about here with that, the knot, and then being, what's the word I want to use, locked down in this base chakra?
Yeah, that's what they were trying. If you go back to and I did a class on this. I don't think we didn't do a visual recording of it. But I did a class many years ago, almost 20 years now, on that, where we took the Genesis, the first couple chapters of Genesis, and I showed them how it related back to this. So it's telling the story of the beginning of man and the constitution of man, the mystic constitution of man. It's telling how man chose free will over freedom. Okay, so his freedom was to live in the Garden of Eden and not be a burden with anything, to take advantage of the true power of the Mother Earth. His free will was to give up all of that and be cast out of the Garden of Eden and have to go through these many cycles of life. To actually be thrown out and have to defend for himself. Because it's just like you created a domino effect and now you have to correct that. You have to pick all the dominoes up and get the right pattern back again so that you can walk back into that Garden of Eden. And that's what man chose free will over freedom. So that's what the Genesis is talking about. Okay? Any other questions? Any questions online?
Not right now.
How long we've been here? Almost an hour?
Almost 50 minutes. Yeah, almost an hour.
Okay, so now I haven't lost anyone, have I? Huh?
I don't know.
I mean, because you won't get nothing out of these 5 sessions if you don't ask questions. And it's kind of complicated, I know it is, but it's really simple. It's not as complicated as you think. Okay, so now we went over the how the Kundalini sends a sound back up, and then we have our subtle bodies. We have our subtle bodies and then eventually our physical body. And these subtle bodies are the background matrix for the physical body. The physical body actually lives within the auric body. Okay? I know people say, well, the soul is within the body and all this stuff, but in actuality, when you actually look at it, say, wait a minute. The soul is within and all around the physical body, because the auric body is part of the soul. So what happens when you cycle out of this life, then the body, the physical body, falls outside of the aura. The aura moves on. The physical body decays back into the dust that it was once before, which was an aspect of the Mother Earth, which it was before. Then you go to the astral realms or the etheric realms, and you in fact you layer, because you not only let the physical body go, but aspects of your astral body you shed too. That falls out of your aura too. And your aura goes to the other side, whether it's astral or etheric side, and it forms another body out of the astral mass still within it, or it pulls on the astral mass of that particular realm, and then it lives a life there. And then when that life is over with, it absorbs that energy, and then is reborn here on the physical plane again. Okay. Because on the other realms, there's no graveyards. Although you die, but after you have had your experience on that particular life, you absorb that energy, that body, back into your auric body, and it's reused again and again and again and again. Unlike here on the physical, on these lower gross planes, you have to give back to that plane, because we really don't belong here. All right, we really don't belong here. That energy needs to recycle itself for these gross physical planes. All right.
So is that why we have to go through a birthing process on the physical plane, but not on the?
Yeah, that's one of the reasons. Because that energy on the astral planes are absorbed. Okay. So now that there's another layer to this, and I don't know if I want to get into it. I said I was. I don't know if I want to get into it today.
So I have a question. If what we talked about with the Earth and this process, going through this process in order to be in alignment with the Earth, how does that correspond to other planets in the solar system as far as this involution process?
If what now?
The other planets in the solar system.
Mm-hmm.
Like, say, for instance, of course, well, I'm assuming that there's life on other planets, because there wouldn't be, the expression.
Yeah, there is. We believe that there is,
Okay,
but they don't live on the physical plane of existence like we do. Okay. In other words, they live on the physical plane of existence. Don't get me wrong, because all planes of existence is physical. Right. But it's physical at a different vibration.
Right, and that's basically
different
what
frequency.
I was asking. How does that differ?
Well, like I said, each chakra is a different frequency of existence. Right. It's just like right now, you're living on the base chakra, but yet you're totally unaware of the insect life, the germ life, even the animal life. You only physically acknowledge them when they are around you. But you physically acknowledge all the human beings on Earth, whether you realize it or not. That's why the evening news or the radio news or the internet news interests you because you're more linked to the human life than the animal life or the insect life or the cellular life. And the only time you become aware of that is when it affects your state of consciousness here on this physical plane that you're aware of. Now, the yogis tell us that on that, you know, on the basic level of consciousness, there's like 56 different realms of existence right here on the physical plane. And when you combine the base of the spine and the sex center, there's 118 realms of existence come right here that we're totally unaware of it, but it's right here. It's right here, but we are totally unaware of it. You know, because why? we have placed our consciousness in different segments of awareness. We only aware of it when we choose to be. So we block everything else out. Okay? So now, but it's physical. When you go to sleep, you enter the astral realms of existence, the mental and astral realms of existence, right? And you're aware that you're asleep. Because sometimes you could be dreaming and say, well, I'm asleep right now. I really don't want nobody to bother me, and I know that somebody's coming to bother me, and I really don't want to get up. But yet, you're asleep, and your consciousness is telling you that. You know what's going on in the house. You know, and then sometimes you can be asleep, but you can be on the other side of the world, reading something, looking at something, enjoying yourself, and then someone comes and knock on your door or walk into your room, and you're saying, now, what this monkey want? You know, so, but because you don't want to be disturbed, but you're aware. And then you turn around and you say, wait a minute, where am I? Because why? You was in your astral state of consciousness. But at that moment, you realize that you're on the other side of the world. You're looking at this. You're enjoying yourself. You're studying whatever you're studying. And you're living a different life that you're totally unaware of. You see, what happens with yoga and the teachings of yoga, it teaches you to become aware of all these different levels of consciousness. And that you can have a fuller life where even if you sleep, you can still take advantage of the experience while you're here on this physical plane. See, and that's what this teaching is teaching you. To be aware even while you sleep. See, and to be aware of all the different existence around you that you're absorbing. Because if someone was to come back and put you under hypnosis, your subconscious mind is picking up all these different realms of existence. Only thing, the person who put you under hypnosis has to know how to ask the questions to get the information. They have to be aware of the different levels of existence. But your subconscious mind is absorbing all of that information. All of the information. The dust, the flakes of skin that's falling off of you, the bacteria that's keeping you healthy, the bacteria that's making you sick, the tiny insects and that's crawling all around here that we cannot see. You know, the airborne particles that's coming in and out of our body. It's aware, your consciousness, your subconscious mind is aware of all of that. But you are not aware of it on the basic level of consciousness. And that's your 118 levels of consciousness on this sex center and basic and the base of the spine center that they tell us that we must conquer in order to move to the solar plexus center. All right?
In a series of statements online, from Loretta says, she wants to know if her thinking is correct. Energy Energies are like strings, and they are weaved, knotted, in different relation to each other, and existence follows. He says, I am not aware of the names of the different states of energy. It is a crude understanding, but am I close to grasping the gross physical planes?
It's something like that, but it's not only gross, it's subtle. So it's something like that. But what happens, and it's very, very easy. I try to have people to understand this. It's very, very easy. You have a cosmic level of energy, of Shakti power, which is at the creative level of of the universe, and we call it the Mahabhutas. Now they group the Mahabhutas into 5 groups, and the easy way to understand and remember the Mahabhutas, if you don't want to remember the Sanskrit names, and everybody in this room know what they are, and that's ether, which is the pinky, right? Then you have air, fire, water, and earth, right? And those are the 5 Mahabhutas in English terminology. Now, to better understand it in English terminology, to put the cosmic spin on it, is that either is etheric sound and space. All right? Air is etheric air. You know, that's a cosmic spin on it. And fire is etheric fire or heat. All right? And then water is etheric liquids. And then gross or earth is etheric solids. And then, just to put it in real perspective, put cosmic in front of each one of them. And then now you know the Mahabhutas. And it's the same thing with the pranas. The same thing. They follow the same pattern. All right. The gross is is apana. Apana prana is a gross state of prana. And then Vyana is a liquid state of prana. And Samana is a heat and fiery state of prana. And the word prana itself is an air or gaseous state of prana. And then Udana is sound, is an etheric sound, space, and movement part of prana, because space creates movement or expression. So it's just that simple. It's just that simple. So it's not hard to remember when you relate it back to the elements of earth. Any other questions? Let's see. Do you have that diagram on the 10 senses?
Right.
You have it?
I have to look for it.
Okay. Well, I guess we can. We'll go over this and then we'll close out.
It's called mapping out the 10
Huh?
mapping out the 10 senses and 10 sense organs.
I don't know. We had several different
Yeah.
formats of it.
I found a couple here.
Hmm?
I found a couple here.
What is it called?
Mapping out the 10 senses and 10 sense organs.
Okay, yeah, that's it.
I have another question here.
Go ahead.
When the physical body dies and the aura moves on, what happens to the soul?
The aura is the body of the soul. The auric body is the body of the soul on that realm of existence. I said mapping out.
Mapping out the 10 senses and 10 sense organs. It's a couple of pages.
Can't find it. Mapping.
Mapping out the 10 senses and 10 sense organs. It was a class in the how-to series on the
It was in the
pranic.
how-to series? Okay. It's not picking nothing up. Email it to me so I can show it. What year?
That was 2015. That class was on 2015, July 19, 2015.
I had something totally different. Oh, I see it. Okay, this is it.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's too much to go into. Well, what I want to show here is you showing them online?
I'm putting it up right now.
Huh?
I'm putting it up right now.
Well, what I want to go into, it doesn't have the 14 major. Well, we can go over that next week. What happens when the Kundalini send the sound out, right? Right? It also what also leaves the Kundalini is the Gnostic lines of force. And the Gnostic lines of force, because at that point, the whole becomes not whole, right? And before I was telling you all that the nadis flow in perfect unison inside the Brahmanati, right? So now when the 3.5 energy configuration blocks the door to Sushumna, the nadis are reconfigured and they split. And now you have Sushumna, which flows uh, uh, in unison along the spine, on the outside of the spine. And you have Ida, which is a positive flow of energy. Which is a negative flow of energy, and Pingala, which is a positive flow of energy, and it loops out and comes back in to wherever the major chakras are. Wherever there's a chakra, it loops in, and it creates these pathways throughout the whole auric structure. And the yogis say that there's about 242,000 Nadic pathways. Some of them say it's all the way up to 700,000. Some of them say as low as 72,000 Nadic pathways. But they branch out. Some of them say they branch out into 700 some Nadic, 700 some thousand Nadic pathways. And then some say that it's the conservative ones lately say there's only 242,000. So what happens as they link up, because they come and they loop. You ever seen the diagrams where you see where the loops start from the base of the spine and goes into the sex center, comes out and loop back into the solar plexus and keeps going on. Those represents the nadis. Now, what happens when those nadis tap in back and forth? They create sense organs, and those sense organs creates senses. And then you have man's 10 senses, and some people say 11 senses. But in the ancient science, they account for at least 10. All right, and these are the 10 in this diagram. So you have sight, you have hearing, smell, taste, and touch. We know those. Then you have speech. You have generation, which is a sex organ. You have excretion, grasping, and movement. All of these are senses. All right? And they are the 10 senses of the body. And of course, man is almost so gross that he don't recognize these 10 senses. He recognizes the 5 senses. The yogis recognize the 10 senses because you know that you have in your speech, when you're speaking to someone or communicating to someone, you are linked to that person. And you can feel things from that person. You can feel, you can smell, you can sense, there's so many things that happen when you're linked with that person. Because your auric bodies link up with that person when you're communicating with them. So if someone was to see you psychically, they'll see that your aura have linked. And you and that person have became, is you, the person, and then the aura. Because the aura becomes a whole nother entity that allows you to communicate with that person. So that's a sense. Then you have of course, the sex link with the opposite sex. You can notice that. You can notice there's a link there. Without even communicating with the person, there's a link there. Excretion is self-explanatory right there. Grasping, that's kind of self-explanatory. Everybody have felt this. You pick up an object and all of a sudden you have a kinship to it. touch it. It takes you back to a time in your life or your past life. You know, everybody have experienced that to a certain degree. You don't know why you feel that way. You don't know what's going on, but you touch it and you say, "Oh my God, what's going on here?" It takes me back to this place that you've never been to in this life. You know, or it takes you back to a childhood place. So that's a sense. Okay. Movement, you move through certain towns or visit certain places you've never been to, but yet you have been there. It's a sense. That's your sense. You know, that's that sense organ picking up. Your feet is very sensitive. Your hands are very sensitive. You go to these different places and you say, "I've been here. I know this place." You know, so you know, of course, science don't like to pick up this stuff or understand it, but it's true. It's true. It's a sense. And these are created from the nadis creating that matrix within the aura. Within the aura. We talk about it a lot more in this right here. You can send this out to everyone, and we could talk more about it next week. But this is the karmic signatures. This is what happened, not karmic, I mean, this is the Kundalini signatures that happens within the aura. This matrix, this nadi matrix, this flow of energy creates this matrix that creates the background to allow all these sense organs to be formed, and then the senses are formed from there. And then the pranayama, the reason why I'm talking about pranayama in this diagram is because why? Because when you begin to regulate the breath, which holds consciousness, it opens up these sense organs. It feeds these sense organs energy that it normally wouldn't have or wouldn't be aware of, because why? You are directing your consciousness in a certain pattern, and where you impact the body with this subtle energy. You charge it up and then push it out, charge it up and push it out, charge it up and push it out, which creates a movement for these sense organs to become linked to your basic consciousness, and that you begin to pick up things. All right? And because why? Because you are you're pushing the energy through the sense organs, and then you're pushing the energies on both sides of the what? Of Sushumna. All right? So you're lining this energy up. So anybody who wants this diagram, email us and we'll send it out to you. And we'll talk more about it next week. If there's no other questions, we'll close out.
There's a follow-up question.
Uh-huh.
So since the aura is the body of the soul, does the soul ever die or change?
Does the soul ever
Die or change? Yeah.
No, the soul is a product of the spirit. In other words, this is how in basic mystic constitution of man, we're taught that the spirit is the divine spark of God. The spirit never moved its position, but what the spirit does do, the spirit creates the soul. The soul is the body of the spirit, right? And then the soul creates the auric body for itself, because the soul, in a sense, never moves too, but yet the auric body carry on the duties of the soul. So now, the soul is manifested from the spirit. So the soul never dies. The soul is only absorbed back into the spirit, like all things are absorbed back into the soul. So the soul is an extension of the spirit. The auric body is an extension of the soul. The auric body is indestructible as well. And there's just an absorption back into it. One of the great revelations that came out of the 9 freedoms, which only makes sense when you look at the law of karma, is that in order for man to ascend from this earth, it have to do what? You remember doing? You remember, in order for man to ascend from this earth, he had to pull back what?
Pull back all the energy he sent out.
All the energy he sent out, he had to pull it back in. So that's that's something that that happens in nature, that you absorb things back. The soul absorbs, the spirit absorbs the soul back. But before the spirit absorbs the soul back, the soul has to absorb all the energies it put out into the universe back. Okay, so is the soul never dies. Everything is just absorbed back into the spirit. First into the soul, and then back into the spirit. All right, so let's go ahead and close out. There's no more questions, right?
No. Oh, there's no more questions.
All right.
That I can see. Prayer. The New Lord's Prayer. O divine and wondrous Spirit, O everlasting Lord of hosts, send forth now through me thy great and lasting power. Allow me, Almighty God, the lasting privilege of radiating to all the world thy great love, so that those who suffer may be given the power and energy to rise above their weaknesses. Almighty God, in great humility do I ask you to send forth your power, to give to me this great lasting privilege of being a channel, so that my suffering brothers may be helped and guided and healed and lifted into thy light, so that they who know not may look up and in doing so receive to their higher selves your divine counsel. Almighty God, this day have you granted me a divine privilege. I ask you now to give to me the strength, so that never again will I turn from my inner vision of you. O great peace, great peace, great peace. In praise of your greatness, O God, doth my soul sing. Grant it energy to sing on forever and forever. Thank you for watching. See you next week.